each year primarily with seniors, but there's some changes next year with the FAFSA, and that's why we invited the juniors with their parents tonight, which I think is important anyway. Before we start, it's not often that I get a chance to visit with parents and put some little plugs in. So I asked Lonnie if I could just steal 3 to 5 minutes tonight before we get this started. I can tell you that every year in the high school, I just feel like we're constantly trying something different. We try to figure out whether it works or not. I know we don't have a lot of the seniors in here. By show of hands, seniors, how many of you were in college and career readiness this year? Okay. That was one of our popular classes, and we've been tweaking that class. We just started a couple of years ago, and it was about college preparation. The students all want to do scholarship writing. They think they're going to go in there every day for 45 minutes, do nothing but search and write scholarships and essays, which you do need some time to do that. What we saw was we have our students leaving the high school and they don't know what they want to do. They're just applying for college to go to college. And I want to see us somehow, I know I visited with you this fall, I want to see what we can do to help with the transition so that the transition after high school actually has purpose. In other words, they're on a path. And then if we can figure that out, we can show how high school has some purpose. In my opinion, this year was the first time we pushed the career piece into that class. So it was college and career readiness. And I'm just going to say this, I didn't think it worked. Again, we're not scared to try something new. I don't think it worked. I think it was something we failed at. And here's what we're looking at doing different and where we might need some of your input. I think we need to start working with the career piece way younger than the senior year. I think that's where we're off. So we're looking at implementing a new freshman quarter class that we can do the career piece earlier and then allow the senior year to keep that class, but allow it to be a specific, what we see the need is more of a college preparation. And I'm not a fan of this, but we've got parents and students and some staff that are behind it. The push is to do some ACT preparation, specific test prep. I'm never one that believes you should teach to the test, but my gosh, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars, right, on those stupid ACT scores. Number one, I hate tests. I'm that student that I just don't test well, you know? But we see a need for that. So as you saw emails come out from Mrs. Watson, we're really surveying our students, specifically our seniors. I know I might have surveyed juniors as well, with parents to see I guess it is the focus is on this year's juniors as we schedule next year, if there's really an interest to do that. We don't have a lot of time to offer 4 sections of that. It'll be 2 of our skinnies, 2 of our 45 minutes at the most. And then, in fact, Mrs. Watson is the one that would teach it. She's really wanting to teach it. And then maybe in May when school gets out, we're still in the building. We could offer perhaps a 2-week course there as well. So we're really looking in, and we're doing that purely because the parents are telling us that's what they want. You know, I think our theory is we're teaching all the content and curriculum. We're teaching more and more all the time. It's one more thing on our plate. But if it really has purpose, if it's for you and it's what you want, that's what we'll try. So that's what we're looking at next year. Juniors, as you go to start your scheduling, that's the feedback we've been trying to survey and get a feel for, is whether there's interest in that. So we're looking at ACT prep, which will help you. It'll guide us right back. So that class is going to be more of a 4-year college prep and the focus there. And then we can work with the freshmen on the career piece. And then we have some supporting pieces where we can, for instance, as a student goes through the high school, we know it, we're going to build a 10-year career plan, their freshman year, a 10-year plan. And so the theory is every time we schedule, we can change the 10-year plan, or we can show how your choices in scheduling fit some of your 10-year plan. So it's just a way we need to allow students to do some research on some careers. What is the education required of these careers? What does it pay? Is it feasible? Does my family support it? All those things. So we just need the conversation to start earlier, and then we can work through the high school. So I'm putting that plug in for the guidance office. As you get those emails, we're not getting a good return on the survey. If you wouldn't mind, parents and students, if you get that, especially I'm talking mostly to our juniors and those parents, please take the time to give us some feedback if that's something you support. So we're looking at an ACT prep class for the first time in Chadron High that I'm aware of. We used to teach it through DL in the mornings before school. So we're trying to figure out how to offer that. So that's my plug for that. With that, I'm excited that we got the expert here tonight. I'm going to let Lonnie come up and introduce our speaker for tonight.
Andrew, should we use them?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'm not going to talk long, but I do want to plug one more thing besides for those surveys and emails. I know we do not have everybody's email right in Infinite Campus. So if you say, especially junior parents, I've kind of been sending a lot to junior parents and senior parents scholarships. Some of us are getting them, or some senior parents, juniors. If you know you are not getting my emails, just shoot me an email at lonnie.watson@chadronschools.org or .net, I'm sorry, and just tell me that you're not getting them so I can add you to that listserv and make sure you get those. But with that, the only other thing I wanted to plug is my website. The website can be found if you go to Chadron Public Schools. It's on students, so it's kind of hidden, and then high school guidance. I get a lot of questions for, I'm just not sure what scholarships you guys have in your guidance office, what you're pushing to the kids. I've been trying to be more proactive on emails, and my new idea is a Monday morning email, just with deadlines coming up to parents and students. I've always done it for the students, but I'm going to try to add the parents in it as well. So here's my website. If you haven't been on there, check it out. I've got a Facebook page and Twitter too. I'd love to get a few more followers on both. With that, I couldn't be more happy to have Andrew. He emailed me today because I didn't know it was going to be him, and I think he could tell I was giddy on my email because a few of you have asked me specific financial aid and FAFSA questions based on your incomes or just not sharing incomes, just your situations, and he is always the guy I call. I think I drive him crazy throughout the course of the year just calling him. So with that, this is Andrew, and I'm going to say it wrong, Hunziker.
You said it right.
Okay, I said it right. All right, thank you.
First group that I've ever had clap for me. You're clapping now, you just wait until you leave and you're gonna wanna hunt me down. All right, so bear with me while I hook this across real quick.
That was funny, intelligent.
I know. All right. Yeah, one of my college buddies came with me today because I graduated from Chadron, and I said, yeah, you're welcome to come to my presentation and laugh at my jokes because no one else will. So, all right. So yes, like Mrs. Watson said, I'm Andrew Hunziker. I'm with Education Quest Foundation. Just a little tidbit of who Education Quest is. We are a private nonprofit in the state of Nebraska with a purpose to increase college access throughout the state by kind of a variety of different ways. I'm out of Scottsbluff. I work primarily with outreach services, so agencies, colleges, prisons, different things like that. I'll work with those students to get them to the next step. We also have our college planning services. Those are in their offices in Kearney, Lincoln, and Omaha. And then we also have grants. Chadron is in their last year of one of our grants. The purpose of that grant is to give additional funds to help get those students maybe on campuses for visits, with any kind of preparation work just to make that transition into college a little easier. And then we also have a scholarships department as well that works closely with the colleges and the foundations throughout the state to have one-stop shop for scholarship searches in the state of Nebraska, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Everything that we do is completely free of charge, and we emphasize using our website as much as possible. Everything that we do, we have a very tech-savvy staff, so we have lots of video tutorials, podcasts, blogs, anything like that. So when it comes down to it, if you have questions about something that has to do with college, we're your one-stop shop to kind of get those questions answered one way or another. One of the biggest things that we do is we have FAFSA completions, and that was the flyer that you guys picked up. I will actually be here for 2 days. You guys are like the only community in the Panhandle that is such a need that I make it a 2-day thing, so that's pretty big. Kudos to you guys. Basically what that is an opportunity for you guys to bring in your tax information, sit down with me and the student, and we actually plug in the FAFSA, so it's not that scary, government form that you think it's going to be. I'm here to kind of simplify and make it a little less stressful for you guys, and hopefully I do it correctly. So, all right. And of course, we have all the different social medias. Feel free to check us out. I don't know how active we are on Pinterest, but you can hunt us down anyway. All right. Thanks for that little laugh. All right. So I'm here today to talk to you guys about the financial aid piece that goes with college. College has a lot of different things that go on, but the financial aid aspect of it is probably the biggest and most important aspect of college. It's kind of the make it or break it for a lot of families. And so I'm here to kind of enlighten you guys with all the different parts that go with that, hopefully explain it to you a little bit better, and just give you a little bit more information. Now, I will tell you right off the bat that this gets really boring after a while. It's a lot of information thrown to you guys all at once. Again, the website is a really good resource for you guys to go to. If you can't remember something I said specifically about Pell Grants, you can go to the website. Everything that I'm going to touch base on is information that's going to be on the website. Okay? With that being said, I'll get to the presentation. If you have questions, you can stop me with the raise of the hand and I'll answer those questions as we go. Okay? All right. So there are a few things we want to talk about first and foremost. Just understanding where the cost of education comes from in the first place. They have two different types of costs. We have the direct and the indirect. Direct is going to be your tuition, paying your instructors, paying for the facility. Your fees, which is going to go toward sports activities, intramurals, the use of the gym, the technology on campus. The room part is going to be where you live. It might be on campus, so that's going to be your dorm room, or it's off campus, maybe with a roommate in an apartment. And then your board specifically refers to your meals. So if you live on campus, you most likely will have some kind of a meal plan. If you live off campus, you might be living off of like ramen noodles or cereal, like many of us did. Books and supplies are also included in that direct cost. That's going to be because there's a variety. You guys are lucky now that technology has really made things a little cheaper for you guys. So back in the day when I went to school, when Lonnie went to school, you were looking at about maybe $300 a book, and your math class was one semester. You buy that book full out, and that would probably be the used price, and then you'd sell it back for maybe 75 bucks if you got anything back in the first place. Okay? Now you guys are lucky enough that books can come on a rental program. You can get ebooks, which cuts down the price on that. You guys have more opportunity to shop around for those things. And I'll talk a little bit more about kind of budgeting for that as we continue. And supplies are going to refer to, if you're taking like an auto body class, maybe your tools. If you're doing a cosmetology class, maybe, the different cosmetic things that you'll need. Okay? So that's where that comes into place. Those are direct costs because those are always going to be needed no matter what program you go into, no matter what school you go to. Those are always the base of the cost of education. There's not a lot of flexibility on that. That's what you're going to have to pay. The indirect costs you have a little bit more control over. Your personal is going to be, your shampoo, the clothes that you wear, the deodorant that you should always use every day. You may do, a salon-style $100 shampoo, or you might do, the Herbal Essence $25 shampoo. That's where that flexibility kind of comes in. And same with transportation. Do you ride your bike to and from school? Do you commute in a Hummer from 45 minutes back and forth? Okay, there's going to be a big difference between those two options. So those are indirect just because you have a little bit more flexibility with that. All right, So let's talk about the types of financial aid. The one that's going to be the most important that we're going to talk about is going to be scholarships, and then we're going to get into grants, work study, and loans. And you'll notice that grant, work study, and loans, those are all orange with asterisks next to them. That is because all of those are based off of your FAFSA application. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, okay? That is a one-stop application that a student is almost now required to do for most scholarships and admittance to a college. That's going to be based off of your tax information, the student's tax information, and we're going to go into excruciating detail onto the FAFSA as we continue, okay? So you'll notice that those ones are orange. Scholarships, however, are going to be multiple applications, and those the students will provide themselves every time. Scholarships come in a variety of criteria. You know, back in the day, we always remembered there was always athletic scholarships available, academic scholarships available, different things like that. But now, you'll notice that there are scholarships for just about anything under the roof. It's crazy how many scholarships are available. When Miss Nebraska was Miss America, there was a parade that she was in, her dress was made of duct tape. There's actually a scholarship for if you want to make your prom suit or tux out of duct tape, there's a scholarship for that. Just really random scholarships out there. So just because maybe your grades aren't so great, or you're like me and you don't have an athletic bone in your body, you can still find scholarships that do qualify for you. You just have to look out for them, okay? Scholarship search tips. First and foremost, always contact the school that you're interested in. So if you're interested in going to Chadron, you start with their START department. You talk to them about all of your information, okay? And they can help you find scholarships that they're most aware of, okay? Then you're gonna move to your high school counselor, who's sending you guys emails every Monday and putting up, I saw the bulletin board, looks really nice, there's lots of stuff there, okay? That's gonna have a lot of opportunity as well. Then you're going to check out Scholarship Quest at educationquest.org. That is going to be the scholarship search for Nebraska students only, for Nebraska colleges only, okay? So if you're planning to go to South Dakota or Wyoming, there might be a few that you can take along with you, but the majority of them are going to be for Nebraska residents going to Nebraska colleges, okay? But you plug in some demographic information, it pulls up scholarships that you can qualify for, and then you can link across to their website, do the application, and so on. So it's not going through a spreadsheet and checking which ones you qualify for. This does all of that for you, okay? If, let's say you are gonna go outside of the state of Nebraska, how dare you, but if you do, there is something called Scholarship Monkey. And you won't forget that because it's so random. But that is essentially the same thing as Scholarship Quest, but it is a national search. So it does all of that hunting for you, but on a national level, okay? Private organizations, maybe where mom and dad work, your church, different things that you're involved in will have a possibility of having scholarships that you never really thought about. You know, grandma and grandpa's memorial scholarship at church, things like that. A lot of those funds go untapped. So it's important for you to kind of think creatively when you're looking for scholarships. You'll be surprised where you find them. And then the internet. But with that being said, if you Google search scholarships, and at some point they want some kind of payment from you, or they want your social, or something like that, just know it's a scam. Right now we're in the process of, there's a lawsuit going out for FAFSA.com, because it is a scam website where you go in, you do all the FAFSA stuff, and then at the end they ask for money. And if you don't pay, they don't submit it for you. Well, FAFSA, free is the first F in FAFSA, so remember that. If you remember anything, remember that. So that's a big scam, and they're in the process. So just kind of be aware. The students are going to be pretty smart with that because they're pretty tech savvy. But every once in a while, I will have a parent call me in and they'll say, "Why do I have to pay $75 for the FAFSA?" And I'll say, "Well, make an appointment. We'll redo it." So. Common mistakes, the ones that you really want to look at are, first and foremost, submitting it at the deadline that is required for the scholarship. Now, if it's the local church and its Grandma's Memorial Scholarship, they might be flexible. However, if you are going toward something like the Susan Buffett Scholarship, if you don't meet or haven't met that deadline, they're not going to consider you for that scholarship at all, okay? This is kind of your first step into adulthood and reality, that if you don't meet that deadline, they're probably not going to work with you to do anything with that, okay? So that's the biggest one. The second biggest thing that you need to make sure you work on when it comes to scholarships is just making sure that you have somebody double check it and triple check it and maybe go over it 4 or 5 times, okay? One, because students sometimes sell themselves short and they'll say, I don't have any leadership qualities, or I don't have any, experience in, this specific thing. But your mom and dad or your teachers may have other perspectives that you can use to benefit yourself, okay? So have them look that over. Also, spell with full words, not the letter U for YOU or TO for TO, okay? And while I'm talking about things to kind of think about, your your email address should be professional, not like Justin Bieber lover or something like that. Like actually have your name to it or something a little bit more professional. And you laugh, but I've seen some really horrible email addresses in my day. So those are going to be the big things when it comes to scholarships. Luckily, again, you guys are used to like word processing and all of that, different Microsoft Word. You can type up essays, separate different paragraphs out depending on what it is you're talking about, maybe leadership, your future goals, your family lifestyle. And then when it comes time for scholarships, you just cut and paste. And then you just have to tweak it a little bit, but it takes a process that otherwise may take you, an hour or 2 to write a scholarship essay to, maybe 20 minutes just to tweak it and submit it across, okay? So that's something that no one ever told me, and I always was trying to do every scholarship, the full essay, every time I did it. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Just copy and paste your own work after somebody kind of looks it over. All right, so let's talk about the Susan Buffett Scholarship a little bit. We'll briefly touch base on this because the online application has already opened up. The deadline for that application is going to be February 1st, so it's coming right up. But with that being said, the Susan Buffett Scholarship is probably one of the most common scholarships in the state of Nebraska. And that is because we all know the Buffett family has plenty of money. This is their way of kind of giving it back to Nebraska. Okay? You do have to meet certain criteria. You have to have a 2.5 on a 4.0 GPA scale, and you have to attend a Nebraska public college. So that's going to be either one of the state colleges, the University of Nebraska system, or one of the community colleges, okay? And then they have other criteria that goes along with that. You have to show some kind of need. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. But it can go up to $4,350 per semester, and that's significant, especially if you're looking at the public schools. Because in theory, the public schools are going to be more low cost than, donor Creighton, okay? So that's something you're going to want to look into. The application deadline is on their website, or the application itself is on the website. That needs to be in by February 1st. So if you haven't gotten to do it yet and you feel like it's one that you may qualify for, please go on there and do that as soon as possible. The application itself is the one that's due on February 1st. When you do your FAFSA, you will submit the student aid result from that. That, however, is not due until March 15th. Okay, so that's why I try to make sure that our FAFSA completion days are before that deadline. So, feel free to come in and make an appointment. We can get that done. There is also a financial aid program scholarship from Education Quest. So if you want to check out the website for all of that information, they'll have more. Just for attending this, you go into a drawing, and then the schools in Kearney's territory, so Grand Island West, because that's 2/3 of the state, but Lincoln doesn't quite realize that. So check that out. That's a good opportunity. Again, the more scholarships you apply for, the more likely you are to get it. It's almost like the Powerball or the Powerball for tomorrow, except don't spend all your money on that, kids. You can't, so it's okay. All right. Any questions on scholarships? Okay. And whenever you guys have questions on that, like I said, the website has a lot of resources available, but your biggest resource is sitting right up here, and Mrs. Watson is going to be able to provide you with lots of information, okay? So do not hesitate and do not drag your feet when it comes to scholarships, okay? That's my lecture. All right, let's talk about grants really quickly. Basically, grants are something that if you get, awesome, but I never tell students to plan for it. Never plan for grants. That's money that you're awarded if you meet the criteria. You're awarded that you do not have to pay back, okay? So it's a great opportunity for students that meet that criteria. However, you may not meet that criteria, so never plan for grants. The grants, the most common one that you guys probably are aware of is the Pell Grant. That's the federal grant, and that ranges from $626 on up to $5,775. Okay, and I've seen the full scale on that. And then there are going to be state and college grants, opportunity grants, all sorts of different things that come into play. But again, that's money you do not pay back. That's money you receive if you meet the criteria. Tuition assistance programs are very similar to grants. Basically what this is if you are Pell eligible, you will additionally get these assistance programs on top of it. So the University of Nebraska system has College Bound Nebraska, and the state colleges have Advantage. The great thing about grants is you don't have to do an application for them. They'll contact you if you qualify for them, okay? So one less thing you have to worry about. But you have to make sure that you complete the FAFSA by the designated date. So April 1st for the University of Nebraska system, and June 1st for Advantage. Then Nebraska Wesleyan University also now, as of 1 year now, has another tuition assistance program very similar to that. And we're hoping more and more schools will kind of get on board, but right now those are the main ones. Work study is when you work on campus and the government pays you your wage. So again, this is one that you have to qualify for via the FAFSA. But if you do qualify for it, you find a job on campus, either assisting instructors grading papers, sitting at the library, tutoring, different things like that, and the government's going to pay your wage. Now, let's say you don't qualify for work study. That doesn't mean you can't work on campus. You can still get a student employment job on campus, and that's where the school pays for you to be there. Work study is going to have up to, I think, 12 hours is what they allow, just because they want to make sure that you're balancing school with work, so you're not working to the point where you're not getting your work done for school. And it's money that you have to work for. So you may say, yeah, I definitely want to do work study. That money's not going to show up to you the second week of classes. That's something you have to get a regular paycheck out of, okay? All right. Now we're going to talk about the fun part, loans. Loans are money that you receive from the government or from a private bank that you have interest on that you have to pay back with that interest at some point, okay? So there are two different types of federal student loans that are available. The first type is considered non-need based. That means that there is no interest accruing while you're in school. In fact, the government is paying the interest while you're in school. And then once you graduate from college or you drop below, below full-time status, then 6 weeks after that, I have to think about this, 6 months after that, you go into repayment, okay, with the interest. That one is going to be the direct subsidized loan. Then we have the non-need based. This one is going to have the interest does accrue while you're in school. You can pay the interest while you're in school, or you can let it capitalize. No penalty either way. And that's going to be a direct unsubsidized loan and a Parent Plus loan. Now the difference between the direct loans and the Parent Plus loan is the student is held fully responsible for the direct, unsub, and subsidized loans. Those are under their names. They typically use the parent's tax information to determine how much the student can get. But other than that, the parents are not tied into that scholarship. So maybe the student goes into deferment or into default, that they're not going to come back onto mom and dad for that money. That is on the student. Whereas, and payments for those direct loans are deferred until after they graduate, okay? The Parent Plus loan is going to be additional funds that the student may need to go to school. The interest starts right away, and it goes into repayment 2 weeks after it's been dispersed, okay? So whereas the student's loans with the direct are deferred until graduation, the Parent Plus loan goes into repayment immediately, and it is solely the parent's responsibility. In fact, just recently I spoke with a buddy of mine who has some crazy professional job now, and he didn't take out one direct loan because he didn't want to have any loans or any debt under his name, which is totally understandable. So his parents all did the Parent Plus loans. Higher interest rate, actually it's the highest interest rate for all of the federal loans, and they didn't realize that they're having him pay. Luckily he's a good enough son that he'll pay it for them, but if he went MIA, they would be stuck with that. So parents, I'm looking out for you right now. Try and avoid those at all costs. Now occasionally you will have to dip into those, and it's definitely an option for you, but sometimes it might be better to look at a private bank for a private student loan, okay? So always keep that in mind. It's always good for the students to get credit behind their name. If I didn't have my student loan debt, I wouldn't have been able to buy my house or my car or anything like that. So it is considered good debt, it's debt nonetheless. Annual loan limits change every year. Your freshman year, you're looking at $5,500. Then it goes up by $1,000 sophomore year, another $1,000 junior year, and then it stays at that $7,500 for your senior level as well. The reasoning behind that is freshmen have a higher possibility of deciding maybe college isn't for me, and so they move on to a job instead. This way, the government's trying to limit how much money they can take out so they don't overwhelm themselves in debt, okay? And I should tell you guys, right now, the loan interest rate is 4.29. That does change every year. So right now, that's where it's at. When you guys start to attend school in the fall of 2016, that will probably change. I wouldn't think it would go up, but when I started college, we were at 8%, and then it slowly went down. So it does fluctuate. It goes back and forth quite often. Okay, so now I talked to you guys about the types of financial aid. Now we're going to go into how to apply and to receive that financial aid. Like I said, scholarships, you're going to do a variety of different applications, okay? Whereas the grants, the work study, and the loans are all based off of that one application for the FAFSA. The FAFSA is at fafsa.gov, because it's a government application, and a lot of schools will have priority deadlines. Most of the time we see that right around March 15th, okay? But those do vary from school to school, so it's important for you to identify which ones the students may be thinking about attending, just to kind of familiarize yourself with those deadlines. And most likely they'll use both student and parent tax information. And that's going to be an application you renew every year. We didn't know that in my household. I have a twin brother. We didn't renew it. But luckily we were able to get who's now my boss. He did it for us last minute. So it worked out really well. But just remember, you'll continue to do this every year in order to get any of those, the federal aid. How the process works is you start off by signing up for an FSA ID, which we're going to talk a little bit more about as we continue. You're going to use that FSA ID, both the student and the parent, and your tax information to submit the FAFSA to the processor. From the processor, it gets split up. They'll send the student aid report, SAR, student aid report. At the same time, the college is going to receive that tax information, your FAFSA results. Then the college is going to contact you if you have any kind of verification that needs to be sent. The most common type of verification is going to be parents' marital status. So if maybe the parents recently divorced or are legally separated, they'll need, and we only used one parent for tax information, they may want to verify legal documentation. If you're under a legal guardianship situation, they'll want to verify that. But now they even have verification on your social security number, where you attended high school, just different things like that, okay? Just to make sure you are who you say you are. The college will spell out exactly what they need from you when they contact you with verification, and you will submit back to them whatever results that they need from you. Then the college will put together all of your information, and they will send you an award letter, most likely electronically, and then you're going to accept or decline any of those awards, scholarships, grants, loans, things like that, and you're going to send that back to them. Once all of that process is done, you're ready to start moving toward getting to college, getting on campus, starting your classes, and so on. Okay? So that's how the financial aid process works. It seems complicated, it seems a little stressful, but it really isn't. The worst part is it all happens right around the same time. Okay? So now it's getting about crunch time. You guys are going to be doing that and prom and everything else, graduation, all at the same time, you lucky dogs. So that's why I'm here to kind of help you guys out with this.
Andrew, can I add something there?
Yeah.
What happens a lot of time is we do the FAFSA and everyone's so good about coming in, getting an appointment or doing it on their own, and then the students forget to check back with the school. Schools aren't mailing you stuff anymore. He said, I don't know if you guys caught that electronically. Sometimes it's not even an email. They'll send the email to the student's new Shattered State Eagles account or Kearney account or Harvard account. And so there's these accounts that these students never check because they've never had these email accounts before. And that's where the college is contacting. Do you get what I'm saying there? So sometimes we sit and we wait and we wait. And I'm constantly on kids. Have you checked we call them like the My CSC account. Those of you parents who have done any classes up there know what that means. Or the My Blue account for Kearney or the My Harvard account. I'm making it up. But a lot of that correspondence from the college is going to go to those accounts. So if we don't check them, we don't know. And they're going to give us deadlines to start accepting some of these scholarship grants, loans. And so if we just apply and do the FAFSA and then like, prom, graduation, woo, we're done. We're not done. We have to keep encouraging our kids, parents and myself and teachers and Mr. Mack, we're all kind of on it, but it's mostly me, to get back into that account and check. See if they've awarded anything. Right now, seniors, we have to be checking constantly. And we just forget, because these are new accounts. We created these accounts and we kind of put them beside in our brain, and now we're working on local scholarships. When all the time there might be some verification to do. That verification, they'll tell you on those sites. And then we have to submit our taxes again before we get. So if you feel like students, this I'm talking to you guys too, if you feel like you're waiting a long time in this process, and juniors, well, you'll get there earlier next year because you'll get to do your FAFSA way earlier than these seniors do this year. We just have to keep checking those accounts because it is electronic and it's sneaky electronic, I feel like. They don't mean to be sneaky.
Yeah, and so you'll have to kind of keep an eye on that, probably starting now, because a lot of admissions applications, they're going to start opening up housing applications soon, things like that. Those are all going to go through those newly created accounts that you guys don't think about. Now, with that being said, parents, if you're trying to access the student's information, know that most schools will not let you unless they have an actual form signed by both the parent and the student acknowledging that the parent has authorization to view and contact the school for any information. That's very important to know, because they just like when you go to the hospital, they cannot release that information to you. And occasionally there will be the parents that want to know how their student's doing in, maybe a math class, and they want to, just like in high school, they want to log on and see what their grades are. That is not so much the case in college. You'll have to have those authorization slips signed and completed ahead of time in order to get any of that information. Okay? All right, so this is new this year. You guys should get super excited. You used to have a PIN number. Both the student and one parent had to have a 4-digit PIN number that was their electronic signature for the FAFSA. However, last year they decided in the middle of the summer, for who knows what reason, that was no longer secure enough. Okay? So they switched it out, and now we have what is called FSA IDs. That stands for Federal Student Aid IDs. That's going to be a username and a password for both just the student and one of the parents. Okay? So that's really important to know that you guys are going to need that. Now, I did get a call from my boss today because we're doing all of these FAPs right around the same time. And there was some confusion in Lincoln last night on the FSA IDs. So let me emphasize a few things to you guys. The FSA ID is created on a website, fsaid.gov, okay? That's going to use the student's email address. It's going to verify their social, their date of birth, all of the same stuff that we're going to use for the FAFSA it's going to use. You're going to have to create both the username and ID. You're going to have to select 2 questions off of a drop-down list, then create 2 more questions, and then use a significant date. All 5 of those things are what they use to verify if you lose your password or something like that. They're going to use that information to determine whether or not you're trying to hack into somebody's account, okay? That significant date cannot be the student's birthday if it's for them. So kind of plan ahead. My parents were pretty genius when they decided to make all of our dates for everything their anniversary. So I can't forget their anniversary anymore, and I'm able to use that date for anything that I need, like a significant date or number for, okay? So think about that. Think about a date that works for you. When you are doing any kind of password authorization or verification questions, make sure it's something that doesn't change on a daily basis. So what is your favorite color? Might be green today, and by Friday it's going to be orange, okay? Use something that's going to be really common. Mother's maiden name is often one that's used. Let's hope the student knows what the mother's maiden name is. A lot of times they don't. Where they were born, just things that will not change ever or something that they'll remember is really important. And when you're creating questions, things like, what is my father's middle name? Or what was my first pet? Things like that will not change. It's really important. But the next thing I need to emphasize is, if the student comes in to see me to do a FAFSA, or mom and dad are trying to get on there, you will have to have 2 separate email accounts for each FSA ID. So mom and dad, if you don't have an email account set up yet, you're going to want to do that very soon because they will want a unique one for the student and a separate one for the parent. Okay, so if the student comes in or the parents come in to see me and we need to fill that out and get it, it's going to take us a really long time to fill that out if we don't know what that email address is. Okay, so I emphasize getting this FSA ID as soon as possible, so it's just one step that you don't have to worry about anymore. Okay? Oh, it's fsaid.ed.gov because they have to make it more complicated for us. Any questions on that? Because that is one that we do have a lot of questions about. Yes?
Yeah, so, for creating the FSA ID, what is the processing time? When you input all the information, does it need any time or just create instantly?
It's pretty much instant. What it will do at the end is it will, let's say, maybe the parents already had a PIN number ahead of time. You can use that information to verify your account when you're creating it, so that will make it a little faster. And then at the end, it will also verify your email account. Once you verify the email, you're good and you're in the system and ready to go. Yeah, so it's pretty instant.
Andrew, are you going to talk about juniors next year?
Yep.
It opens early, right? You'll talk about that.
Yeah, but that's good you said that. Okay, so juniors that are in here right now, because I know we have some juniors, this is something you guys are going to need in October, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we continue. So all the information that I'm giving, and it seems like it's specific to the seniors, it is kind of, but because of the change, this is all going to become very important for you right when you start school. Okay, so FSA IDs, this is going to go for all of you guys that are in here. Get that signed up, and it sticks to you for 7 years unless you become inactive for 7 years, and then it goes away. Okay. Any other questions on the FSA ID before I continue? Okay. Oh, this is a screenshot of the website. So it uses the email, confirms the email, you create the username and password, and then you'll confirm the password. And for some odd reason, you have to verify that you're of 13 years of age or older. I guess if you're under that, they are accepting you into college already. I guess there are a lot more geniuses out there than I am. Crazy to me. Okay, so that's what you'll have to do there. And then it goes through and it shows you these little tabs as you go. So you'll create the identity, then you'll do the profile, you review and confirm with the secure code that's emailed to you. And then once you're done, you're done. You get in, you can start going. It is a little bit longer of a process, but this is to verify and make sure that no one's getting into your account, stealing your account information.
And is this something that has to be done before they come in for the appointment to do the FAFSA? Or could they do it at the same time?
You can do it at the same time, but typically we schedule, that's a good question. So in the past we've scheduled, since this is so new, we scheduled about 30-minute long appointments. If we throw this in the mix, it's probably going to add another 30 minutes to it. So I would highly recommend to have that done ahead of time. And I'm going to try and allow a little bit of wiggle room with the scheduling, but just knowing that is probably going to happen here and there. Students forget, parents forget, things happen. So I would recommend getting it done if you can ahead of time. And if you guys ever come to any problems that you have with that, like I said, give us a ring, contact me, whatever you need to do. We'll see if we can help you out and get that done. But yes, preferably before you come in. All right, so moving on from the FSA ID, let's talk about the FAFSA itself. Things you will need to complete the FAFSA, and this is going to be both for the seniors and for the juniors, okay? You will need your 2015 taxes and W-2s. So, senior parents this year, that means you're probably going to be doing your taxes a little earlier than normal. Luckily, I think it opens a little earlier this year, so that's a plus. For senior parents, let's say you have property and you are not going to be able to complete that in time. You're a farmer, a rancher, whatever the case may be. You can bring your 2014 information in. We'll complete it with that. It's considered an estimate. But then they will verify your tax information, and you'll have to have that submitted by April 1st or June 1st, depending on which school you're attending. So we'll have to go back in and verify that information at some point. Okay? Whereas juniors this year, when it comes time for the FAFSA next year, this is going to be a headache that we don't have to worry about, because by October, most likely your parents' taxes are going to be done. Okay? So keep that in mind. If mom and dad, you're just struggling to get all the information in, do not stress. You can come forward with your 2014 information and we can just go off of that. Okay? They will need FSA IDs, social security numbers, for both the student and the parents, birth dates for the parents and the student, any child support paid or received for the parents, the value of savings and checking accounts, and the value of any investments that do not include retirement accounts, 401ks, anything like that. Okay? And then we have a full list of the things that you need to bring. If there are other things that they do ask you to bring, if you don't have a social or anything like that, you can access what information you can use otherwise. Okay, so I keep talking about how parents have to use their tax information as well as the students. This is what determines whether or not the student needs their parents' information or if they're going solely off of their own. Okay? If the student was born before January 1st of 93, then they're considered independent. But if they were born before that, if they're born after that, they're a dependent student. Okay? If they're married, they're good. If they've already completed their bachelor's, if they've ever been in the U.S. or in active duty currently, if they have any children or dependents, that they provide over 50% of their support. Okay? Sometimes we'll come across students that will have dependents or children, but mom and dad are helping out. You have to be able to verify that the student themselves is actually providing the majority of their support. And if you have questions on that, stick around, ask me, I can kind of help you guys out with that. If they've ever been in foster care, ward of the court, or an orphan since the age of 13, if they are under legal guardianship, we don't have emancipation in the state of Nebraska, so sadly you guys don't get to emancipate your children. And if they're unaccompanied or homeless. If any of you are aware of any students that would be deemed homeless or at risk of being homeless, that would be something to, let Mrs. Watson or, any administration know about that. And there is a different process that they go under for that. Okay? So if you answer yes to any of these questions, you have to be on your own information, okay? But if you went through this, wait, I gotta think how I'm saying, yes. If you answer yes to any of these questions, you are considered dependent, therefore your parents do not need we do not have to include their tax information. If you go through this and none of these apply to you, that means we still use your parents' information, okay? Parents' information. This is important because we have a lot of two-parent families out there, or two-household families. So it basically bases off of whichever parent provides the majority of the support. So again, 50% or more support for the child. Typically, who the student lives with. Every once in a while, there will be a situation where the student lives with one parent, but the other parent's paying, or paying for their car, is providing a substantial amount of money to the child. And that can happen. If the separated parents or divorced parents have remarried, we will use the parent who is the one that provides the majority support, their spouse's information. Okay? That's kind of the biggest one there. And then legal guardians, again, we don't use their information. All right. So that helps us decide what information we have to use for the tax, or for the FAFSA. The FAFSA results give us something called the expected family contribution, the EFC, and that's the number. It's a number scale. That's the number that colleges and you guys will go off and determine what the student's need is, and that ranges from 0 to 99,999. Okay. The lower the EFC, the higher the need for the student. And so they use that to determine what grants you'll qualify for, scholarships, and so on.
Andrew, can I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm
No, that's
interrupting.
great.
I got to tell you guys a story. So I'm in this counselor's conference in October up at the college, and this is what I told your kids too. So just so you know, this is the same story. Sitting by a counselor, I think she's from Scottsbluff, and she literally started bawling, talking about the EFC, because it comes back high. Is that fair of me to say, Andrew, that I told your kids, plan on that EFC being way more than your parents are going to be able to afford to pay for you for college. I mean, just based on what I know, a teacher's salary and what the EFC comes out, I mean, no way. There's just no way. And maybe there is way in some families that really have had a trust set up, or, it may be that there's been saving beyond what I can fathom. But I told your kids that EFC is going to scare your parents. And so I'm telling you guys that are first time doing this FAFSA, the EFC is going to scare you. I don't think it's very reasonable. I don't think it's logistical, and I think it's kind of crazy. And this counselor's beside me bawling. I don't think she should be bawling about it. She should understand, the counselor, but I'm not a parent of a senior yet. I mean, I think it gets more emotional when you're sitting with your kid in that room and you see that EFC and you got to look your kid in the eye and say, sweetheart, I'm sorry, Reese, but there's just no way. So I just want you to be prepared for that. I guess I didn't realize what an emotional thing it could be until I was sitting next to a parent who does what I do for a living, who was crying, and then I had my own kid, and then I'm like, okay, now I can kind of, I guess I get it more now, that you could be sitting next to her, they see that number, and then they say, because I was probably the same thing with something, my single dad who raised me, well, why can't you pay $15,000 a year for me to go to college? And he's just like, 15, yeah, right, I'm a teacher and I'm a single dad, So just be prepared for that. Maybe talk to your kids a little bit about that. I just don't want Andrew to be in a situation, and you've probably seen more strange situations than I can even fathom. I've done this for a year and a half now. Andrew's been doing FAFSAs for a while with students, so he's probably sat in on some really uncomfortable situations. So I try to prep your kids that number is going to be unreasonable, and maybe it won't for you, and maybe I'm just living this crazy, not saving enough world. But just know that situation could happen. That number is going to probably be higher for most of us adults that we can afford. Just a little prep, a little story there.
Yeah. Well, and something to keep in mind is that EFC, at no point does the FAFSA use your school selection. You'll select a school when you're going through this. It does not use your school selection to determine what that expected family contribution is. So what maybe you have Harvard and you have CFC selected, and your expected family contribution is going to be the same for both of them. Huge difference in cost of attendance, but that number is always going to stay the same. Or let's say you're going to WMCC, where you're looking at maybe $2,000 a semester. that number is going to still stay the same. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. I tell most parents that not to really see it as a dollar value that they're going to have to pay out of pocket. It's not even really a number that you guys need to stress yourself over. It's the number that the colleges and government go off of to determine what other need you have. If by this time, the student should have, in theory, done a handful of scholarships already to ease that worry. Okay? But that's very good. It makes me sad if she was crying.
I know, I felt that.
And another funny thing is my twin brother and I had completely different numbers. Completely different numbers. Now granted, he was lazier in high school, and so I worked, so I had a little bit more money in my taxes. And I think that's probably where it changed a little bit, but you'll notice that. I mean, you may have a child that's younger or older, and you'll see that there's going to be a nice variation between all of the kids, okay? But yes, I do have some crazy stories about those things. Okay, so basically what they do is they take that cost of education, the tuition fees, room and board, all that stuff that we talked about at the beginning. They're going to subtract out your expected family contribution, and they're going to determine what your financial need is. Now this is where it really comes into play at the colleges. The federal level, they're only looking at that expected family contribution. The college level, they're looking at the whole equation, okay? So this is where Doane College has the flexibility of saying, okay, John Smith has attended and he's looking at, financial need of, let's say, $25,000 to attend here for this first year. Let's use that number and determine what other scholarships he qualifies for, what other grants we have here, okay? Whereas maybe Jane Smith submitted it and she's showing that she's going to need more than that, $50,000 to attend, okay? Then they're going to be looking at that number and they're going to say, okay, she qualifies for even more. We need to give her even more money, okay? So that's where that really comes into play. We all know the government's very cut and dry, so they're going to go based off of your taxes. They're going to give you that expected family contribution, and they're going to say, you all qualify for loans, congratulations. Whereas the colleges have a little bit more flexibility with helping you guys out, which is why it's important to stay in close contact with them to make sure that all of your options are being used. This is a really, really good example to show you guys how this works. So we have 3 different families and their incomes go up by $50,000 per family. Their assets stay the same, but you'll notice that the expected family contribution changes significantly. Okay? So that's something to look at. So we're looking at family A having $2,306 in expected family contribution, family B having $17,056, and family C having $35,468. Okay? So that's a big change. Whereas this next example shows a family, 3 different families with the same incomes and their assets grow substantially. Okay? You'll see that they're all under $4,000 for expected family contribution. Even family C with an income of $50,000 and assets of $100,000, they're still under that level. All 3 of these families are Pell eligible. They are all looking at potentially getting grants to go to school. Okay? So it's really interesting how they do the equation, and I could tell you that, but we do not have enough time in like 2 days for me to explain it because it's hard for me to understand. But really what it comes down to is income is the highest, is the most important thing that they go off of. Assets, those aren't used they're not as important, I guess, as the income itself. Okay? These are the things that you would include: checking, savings, stocks, bonds, CDs, mutual funds. If you have any rental property, we're in a college town, so it may be more common. You'll want to use the net value of that rental property. If you have a second residence in Hawaii, we will use the net value of that second residence in Hawaii. And any college savings plans that you use. The most important thing to know is, mom and dad, your retirement accounts, 401ks, things like that are not touched. We don't even put those into the equation, okay? And let's say, another question that I get from farming and ranching families is, if you live on the farm or the ranch, we don't have to use any of that. If you live in town and you have a ranch or a farm in Sheridan County, then we would use the net value of that property. Okay? And if you have questions about that, please stop by and talk to me after this. Oh, it was the next slide that I was going to talk about. So that's what you're looking at that, especially if you lease it out and things like that, you're bringing in the income from it. Okay, I just threw a whole lot of information at you, and it's about to get crazy, okay? Now we're going to look at the actual screenshots from the FAFSA website, and I'm going to kind of explain things as we go. This is the landing page. Most of you will be you'll be starting a new FAFSA account. Other times, when you're going back your second year, you'll just log in with the same information. It's going to use your new FSA ID and password, and it's going to give you the option to either do the next coming school year or the current one. So you'll select the school year that is the one you will be attending. You will have to have a save key, so some kind of a password just in case you have to save it and come back to it later. You didn't quite have, a W-2 information, something you can get back into it with. And once you submit it, this number goes away. Then it's going to start going through your demographic information, just the standard stuff, but it will ask you, have you lived in Nebraska for at least 5 years, your marital status. This is for the student. You'll notice that here on the blue, you'll see blue and it says student, just to clarify so you don't get confused. At what point do you put in the parents, what point is the students? It spells it out for you as you go. You go through eligibility. Male students, it's important for you to register with Selective Service when it's necessary, okay? And if you come to me and you haven't done that yet, you can actually do it through this process and they'll give you the information via the mail. But that is still required in order to receive any federal aid. It's going to ask you some more information. What is the highest level of school parent 1 or parent 2 have completed? You'll be able to select the school that you are graduating from, and then you will go through and you will select the colleges that you plan to attend. You have up to 10 options that you can choose from, so you're not stuck with one. You can pick 10, and if you have 13, you can go in later on and get rid of one that you may be not interested in and add a different one in. You'll have to select what your housing plan will be, if you're going to be on campus, off campus, or with parent. However, like I said, this information isn't used to determine how much money it is. This is just information that the college needs in order to process the information that you're sending across. Then it's going to go through those dependency questions, and if you go through and it determines that you are dependent, it's going to move on into the parent's information. If you are considered independent, it goes from this straight to the financial aspect part. Okay. Parents is going to ask marital status. This is a good one. When were you married, divorced, widowed? They need a month and a year. Okay. So husbands out there, if your wife is in the room, you might want to study up and have that happen a lot. Okay. Both parents' socials, email addresses, how many are in the household. Now the how many in household doesn't necessarily mean how many you claim. It literally means how many are in your household, okay? From that point, we're able to access the IRS's data retrieval process. This is a fairly new process. I think it's 3 years in. Basically what this is it's going to pull the student's tax information across. It's going to pull the parent's tax information across to limit the amount of human error that can be, like adding an extra zero or maybe not putting in a zero. This way, we just know it is the actual IRS's information. So once you put your demographic information in, it will pull it up. It will let you know what information the IRS has that can be transferred across. You will transfer that to the application, and it will autofill the majority of it. It won't fill your W-2 information or child support or your bank accounts, just the information that it has on hand. Then you go in and you finish up the financial aid or the financial aspect. And at the end, what it does is it's going to give us a random number. It says, as of today, does the total amount of parents or students on their site current assets exceed X amount of dollars. And this number changes with everybody. I don't know how this equation comes about. But if you do exceed that amount, that's when it's going to have you specify how much are in your bank accounts, how much are in investments, and how many are in current businesses or investment farms. Most of you probably don't have businesses of 100 or more employees or what they deem investment farms. Okay? Then the student will go through and do their tax information as well. It will link the tax information across from the IRS again. And once you submit all of that, it goes to the sign and submit page. Okay? So it's a fairly quick process. It just gets a little bit tedious sometimes when you're dealing with tax numbers and things like that. Now, I will tell you, when you are in the actual application, you'll notice they have these boxes to fill in. But if you are in one of the boxes, this help and hints area is going to tell you exactly which line on which form they're asking that information from. Okay? So they're literally spelling out for you what information they need in that question. So if you get confused on that, you can check that out. Our website also goes through and it tells you question number 29 asks us about this. This is where it's coming from. Okay? Then at the end, it's going to give you your student aid report. It's going to let you know information on the schools that you submitted, as well as what your expected family contribution is. And from that number, it's going to give you an estimate as to how much you qualify for in Pell and loans. So if you qualify for anything in Pell, it will show up. If you don't qualify for Pell, it won't show up. So it's not going to say Pell 0. It's just going to leave that out. Okay? And then it's going to go through and let you know how much in student loans. However, I can tell you guys pretty confidently, you've all qualified for loans. Congratulations. Okay? All that information is going to be there. This is estimated information. They will send you the actual student aid report 3 to 7 days after you submit the application. Okay? Again, once you receive that information, and the schools receive it, they're going to send you the verification, you're going to send the verification back, they're going to send you the award letter. This is what Mrs. Watson was talking about. They might not even send you an email in your MyCSC or your MyBlue or whatever. They may just expect you to log into their financial aid section and do this lovely little spreadsheet, okay? What it does is they're going to spell out which loans you've received, all the scholarships you've received, grants, and you are given the opportunity to accept or decline any of those awards. You're not going to decline scholarships or grants, but you may decline work study or loans, or maybe you only want a portion of the amount that's been allotted to you. If you're looking at the fall semester and you only want to take half of your loans, you are able to get back into it and ask for more to get that rest of the 100% if you need that money at some point, okay? But that's what the award letter does. Once you submit that information and you fill it out, you send it back to them, they'll start processing all of your information and you will be getting ready to attend classes. Things to know. IRS data retrieval, that's the one that we talked about. That's going to take across your tax information. That is only available if you've submitted your current tax information or your current taxes, okay? And you have to give it it varies. About 3 days, sometimes 7 days. I've seen 2 weeks as well. So it's kind of a roll of the dice whether or not you're going to be in there. So if you're sitting with me and it doesn't come up and it doesn't work, don't stress about it. It's just a process that we can work out later. Now, if you are not in the IRS data, if the IRS doesn't have your information finalized yet, that is something you will have to do before the student is ready to attend classes. They're going to have that IRS data retrieval or a physical tax transcript from the IRS office. Okay? I'd recommend the IRS data retrieval over the tax offices because they're kind of hectic. Verification we've talked about, and student loans, you'll go to studentloans.gov. The students will, and the parents. If you're taking out a Parent Plus loan, that's how you're going to access all that information. The students will be required to do entrance counseling and then sign the master promissory note. That entrance counseling is to give them the information that they need to know, so when it comes time to go into repayment, they can't claim that they didn't get that information. You'll be doing entrance counseling and exit counseling, so you understand the responsibility you're taking on by taking those student loans. When you apply for student loans, you're just going to use your your FSA ID to access that information. So it's important for you to keep that information kind of close at hand. When you graduate college, you'll still be using that information to access, to maybe find out where the billing address or how much you have left in loans, or consolidate, or defer, whatever the case may be. All of that's going to be done on this website. Okay. And they don't have the good old slide. Okay, so let's talk about the changes that are happening in the FAFSA very soon. We do have a slide for it, I gotta find it. So as of the beginning of this year, they have decided to make the FAFSA a little bit less complicated, which we all love. What they're going to do is it's going to become open for seniors in October. And I'm going to find the actual information here. Okay. So what's going to happen is it's going to go to something called prior year. So right now the FAFSA uses the prior year tax information. So next year it will be using the prior year. So seniors now, nothing will change for you except you'll log in and you'll renew your FAFSA with literally the exact same information that you submitted the first time around. Now for juniors, all of the information that I just went over, that's all going to take place beginning in October. And you're going to use 2015's tax information. And this is great for a variety of reasons. One, you most likely will have your taxes done by that point. It allows the colleges an opportunity to start processing all of your financial aid information ahead of time. So then that way, it's not like the senior parents now, where you are rushing to get everything done in the spring, okay? The only thing that it will change is if some oddity comes up with your taxes, you won't know about it until October of that year. And occasionally we'll come across errors or something like that we'll catch. I'm not a tax person, but occasionally we'll be sitting down and the parent will say, oh my gosh, that is not correct. So this is, we use that sometimes as a way to help us make sure that we're correct and up to date. But that's what it's looking like. As of right now, the schools haven't decided about changing the deadlines to the actual FAFSA completion, okay? Everything's still probably, from this point at least, still going to be around March 15th when everything's due. This just gives you an opportunity to get it done ahead of time so you're not rushing, okay? So it will be nice, it's just another change that we're dealing with right now. So it will open up. As of right now, Education Quest doesn't know how we're going to deal with it because the fall term we're helping people get ready for school and we're doing our college access days and things like that. So I may be here in the fall term. I may also be here again in February. So Mrs. Watson will know all of that. I'll probably be corresponding with her a lot, trying to figure that out. But that's what you're looking at for the juniors. All the same information that I went across is, as of right now, going to be the same. Over the summer they may change something. I really hope not, but if they do, you guys will be the first to know. With that being said, we do have newsletters that go out to the parents on a monthly basis and students on a monthly basis, and you can log into those or you can sign up for those on our website if you ever kind of want up-to-date changes with financial aid, college access stuff. All right. So how many of you, okay, go ahead.
Let me ask this question because I want to know if my advice has been correct in here.
Okay.
When you're filling out the FAFSA and you get to list your colleges in there, I've been really plugging that list colleges in there. Like the student who for sure wants to go to Black Hills State, put Chapman State in there, put WCC in there, put something in there to do some comparisons because every college will then send you the package.
Yeah.
Like they do.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can really see the reality of the cost.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, oh yeah. So,
You can decline.
yeah, you can always decline. And by submitting your FAFSA to them is not the same as submitting an application for admission. Okay? So just by sending them that information, they're going to want you to do an application application. Doing applications at schools that you're only slightly interested in is not going to hurt you. It does give you the opportunity to kind of sit down with your parents or your support system and say, okay, Chadron is offering me this financial aid, whereas Black Hills is offering this one. And it gives you an opportunity to kind of sit down and see. Another thing that we also always talk about is summer melt, which is this, they call it a phenomenon in higher education, when students drag their feet and July comes around and they realize they did not register for classes, they didn't get their FAFSA done, they didn't send scholarship applications, and they're out. They've decided at that point, I'm not going to deal with that, I'm out of college in the first place. With submitting more schools, you have other options behind you. So if something happens and you're planning to go to UNL and over the summer life happens and you discover I cannot afford to take out that debt, you have Chadron in your back pocket because you submitted your FAFSA to them. Okay? So, and I'm the prime example of that. I plan to go to UNK and I did the FAFSA, believe it or not. I did no scholarship applications because I was a procrastinator. And so when it came time, I realized that was going to be a substantial amount of money out of my pocket or in debt. So I decided to go to WNCC, and I luckily did send in my FAFSA information, so it was a really easy back pocket option. Okay? Yeah, we always say three schools minimum. But if if you're a student that knows for a fact you're going to Black Hills State and you and your parents have gone through and have gotten all the details, more power to you, and that's great. But if you're kind of still on edge, you have up to 10 schools you can submit.
I think the last thing I'll say tonight, college actually can be affordable. It's still out there. I actually kind of gave up on that hope as a parent. Your 4.0 valedictorian, that kid that really wants to go to a university school, my goodness, $30,000 in student loans, they did pretty good. They did good compared to their peers graduating around them. In winter break, we had some alumni come back and they spoke to our seniors in here. The juniors weren't in here to hear that. Listening to them and a few others that came in, I always ask this question. And a quick example, a kid who graduated 4 years ago from college, ended up going to WNCC for a year and a half, 2 years, kind of finished early there with a CSC, finished up early there, got a 4-year degree in 3.5 years, been out in the job market already 4 years, purchased their own home, has their own car, and that kid gave up the university dream. The other kid wants to go to the university dream, and you hear them now talk about the student loans of the university. It's really scary. It really scares me. So just allow FAFSA to be the way. If FAFSA, come in and make the appointment. I kid you not. But it'll take you an hour and a half. It took me an hour just to find my pin for each year. They have to go back in. But what might take you an hour and a half will get done in 20, 30 minutes with Andrew, Jody, or whoever's up here.
It'll be me. And my record last year was 12 minutes, so.
It's great. So let them do that for sure the first time with you, or if you have that for a couple of them, some of you have some, your older children who've been through college, just keep it there before. Ask the parents around. Make the appointment the first time to see how easy they flow through it for you, and then keep in mind, put your colleges in there so that you get some comparison. Compare dollars to dollars now with your schools. Then you can.
And Jerry, I'll piggyback on that too. The comparison is key because you will be so surprised how competitive some larger schools can be with smaller schools. You're always going to find that Chadron State and WNCC is going to beat everyone. They always will, and they always are going to do that, and knowing that ahead of time. But the comparison is what's so fun for me, to see what a private school or a university can offer compared to a state school. Really, it is worth it to give yourself a shot to just see the difference, I think. And then have those talks at your home about, are we okay with some student debt? I ask kids and they're like, I want no student debt. And I said, well, are you going to buy a car? And they're like, oh, heck yeah, I'm buying a car. Okay, well, each family is different. What scares them and what doesn't scare them, and you guys know. Are you a no debt family? You know that. Are you okay with some student loan debt? An investment in their education? You guys know that. The kids don't know it because they hear it from us. And we're all different. Mr. Mack and I are a little different. Andrew's probably different. They hear it in personal finance. And then they get so scared about all of it. And so who they really need to hear it from is awesome to hear it from us. They really need to hear it from you guys, because that's who probably the opinion they respect the most, and where they're going to need the help, because the safety net of us kind of starts shrinking as they go on, and you guys are the ones who are there.
Well, just to give you, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, for juniors, current juniors, then we wouldn't want to use these February appointment times
Nope.
as we can.
Yeah, and so when it comes time,
Until
October-ish, I will know more precisely as to when we'll be here, and we'll advertise.
But we wanted you to come tonight because we might not have this again.
Yeah, we don't
before
know if we'll be
October.
doing financial aid presentations.
So this might be your
ahead of
presentation.
Oh,
time.
yeah, no, that's fine, that's
Yeah.
fine. Would it be something to open up the status emails and pins and an account, or would that be okay?
It wouldn't hurt you to do it.
Okay.
It'll just get it done in ahead of time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Something else that I was going to give, and then I'll touch base with you, to talk about student loan debt. Okay, so I went to WNCC in Chadron and got my bachelor's in business, okay? I was trying to be versatile in what I ended up doing. Ended up with $26,000 in student loan debt, which is really close to the national average. It's pretty close, but for those two school options, it's kind of high. Now, my twin brother, who is not here to defend himself, went to the University of Wyoming, went all the way to get his Juris Doctorate, so he's now a lawyer, a big-time lawyer, but he lives in my basement, and he pays me a very small rent, and he has over $100,000 in student debt. So he, multiply mine times 4, that's how much he has in debt. Now in theory, we're all saying he's a lawyer, he'll pay it off. It's important for the student to kind of evaluate what it is that they want to go into and see what the job demand is. He was lucky to find a job where he did, but he is not even close to being able to pay off his student loan debt at this point. There are options for that out there. If you work in education or if you work in some kind of public service field, you can most likely get your loans forgiven after 10 years of providing service in your career, okay? But otherwise, he's hoping he's going to become a partner in 10 years, and we'll be able to move out of my basement in 10 years. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, I was happy that I had my loan debt because it gave me a good credit score, and it does do that. It does help you with your credit. But I would have also been more comfortable if it was something more reasonable that I could have had paid off. I'm now out of school for 4 years. I would have loved to have it paid off by now. Okay? So those are things to kind of keep in mind. Yeah.
I just want to affirm on what you said. For the current seniors, they're going to file the FAFSA this year, you said by March 15th, right? They will file another FAFSA in October.
Yep.
And you said the same information is coming across. You don't mean the same. What if their assets have changed or their...
No, it will, because when it comes to the asset stuff, it does go as of the day that you're filing. So there will be a slight change in that.
But tax information?
The tax information will all be the same. Most likely the school information will be more narrowed down, but it will be the same. So results will be pretty similar. Like I was showing